Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to Fa1lcast, Fa1lcast, Fa1lcast. And
That was high.
that was high. You can tell.
You've been saving that up for all through the first 3 rounds, haven't you?
I know the excitement has been palpable to the point where I lost my sphincter. Howdy ho, everyone! It's myself, Mr. Bolkenberg, and everyone's favourite Mexican taco, Mr. Ben, back for an F1 discussion later than usual this season. How you doing, mate?
Very good. Do you like my pace? Do you like it?
I tell you, Force India better like your pace with the way you've been driving this year.
I'm so looking forward to covering him in particular, actually. No, I'm really good, mate. I've been having a few internet problems, been having a few controller problems, but I think we'll power through regardless. And yeah, I think actually coming into this after the first 3 rounds might actually work in our favour, because, I mean, man, there is so much to cover. So very much.
There is, and almost all of it, I think, is, well, for me personally, a step forward into an F1 that is rewarding again for the viewer. For me, it is anyway. If you don't like watch sport and expect it to play like a computer game in a public lobby. So yes, we're off to Silverstone next.
Yeah, it's our home Grand Prix, where I'm sure we'll fail to score again.
Yay! It has been a bit of a random season for us, but you have got double my points. Had a couple, so you're doing well. You're doing well.
First time that's ever happened,
Woo,
actually. Yeah, this is a real bogey circuit for me, still. It's got a little bit better with this version of the game, but it's still a problem for me. And look at that weird disparity in points, up and down the grid. Button ahead of Verstappen, noticeably so.
It's been a bit of a weird topsy-turvy season. And something tells me that probably the F1 2017 season could well end up a bit like that, where it's one driver caning another season on season, or race on race.
Oh, that reminds me, actually, speaking of people being caned and whatnot, we still also have to take a look at our predictions that we made.
Oh shit, yeah. Oh, I
prior to the start of the season.
Bum bum bum.
What tyre allocation do I want?
I was just thinking that.
I don't know, it's quite hard on tyres, isn't it, Silverstone?
I thought it was.
But I know I hate the hard compound tyre. In all versions of the game.
I agree, actually, because... yeah, I'm going to stick with balanced. Because I've noticed that quite a lot of my setups just refuse to work on the hardest compound of tyre. And then I suddenly gain like 3 seconds between that compound and the other one. I'm like, whoa!
Yeah, I if I can avoid using them, I will. But yeah, it's strange actually to have it be so pronounced for both of us. I thought maybe I was the only one, but it's good to know I'm never alone when I'm with you.
No, always at the back of the grid together in the barrier,
where we belong.
we know our pace. So yeah, 3 rounds in, and what are you making of it?
I have to say, like, I came into the season. We said this before the season began, of course, but I came into it more excited for a new season than I had been in a long time. And sorry, I almost went to track without using a setup, like a complete dick. Excuse me. No, I came in so excited for it, and part of me, to be honest, did kind of think, well, maybe it's a lot of hype that comes to nothing. But I've been really impressed with it. I think, you know, everyone says Australia was perhaps the weakest race, but even that I found myself very compelled by what was going on track. And it's good to see proper overtaking again.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing for me.
Overtaking that you can see the build up to, and that specifically China I'm thinking of, where people were having to really think about overtakes from corner to corner and building up and placing their car. And to me, I think I put it on Twitter, and it got featured in an F1 website where they was picking out random tweets from people, and it was all along the similar lines actually of, I'd take one of those overtakes over 20 DRS any day was what my tweet was, but everyone was saying the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, because it's I don't know. There's always been that debate, hasn't there, between people saying, well, there's not enough overtaking, and then people saying there's the overtaking became too easy. Whatever we're doing now, I think, is sort of the best of both worlds. I mean, it's still difficult for cars to get past Kimi Raikkonen, but still, when someone overtakes now, it's so much more dramatic and impressive than it was. And I think part of that, of course, probably comes down to the higher corner speeds.
Yeah.
As I carry a bit too much speed through a corner and kiss the gravel there for fun. I think, you know, this combination of these heavier and wider cars that are somehow faster, with a DRS that, you know, has its place but is far less clear cut than it was.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it used to be like DRS. You know, once you got DRS, that was it. Game over, really, for the car in front. The speed differential was huge, and I don't know what it is specifically about this formula that's changed, that's rendered DRS a little bit neutered. But you know, plenty of times now I've seen guys get within DRS range, open the DRS, and then actually not get into range to make the move. Which, you know, previously never happened, of course. And then to see particularly Vettel, I think, is showing his class again this year, obviously, which we'll get onto in more detail as appropriate. But when you mention people sort of lining up their moves, corners in advance, I think he's, in particular, a really good example of that. Him and Alonso. And I have to say, for me, Alonso, some of the moves he's been putting on people in that
he has no right to be doing.
Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, showing his class, and putting in a cheeky radio message at the same time. What's not to love?
I mean, you know, in summary though, I think this is the first season I can remember since the 90s where I've watched every race and not regretted it.
Hey.
I've thoroughly enjoyed every single qualifying session and race, and normally that isn't the case. Normally there's a few duffers here and there, and you tend to know in advance which ones they're going to be, actually. Yeah,
and that's interesting this year, actually, I think, because I think maybe some of the races which may have been a bit more processional, I think now you can't afford to be processional over it, so you've got to make the difference where you can. And I think that will force people to, again, think differently because of the way how the cars are. So, yeah, it's exciting.
I mean, something that stuck out for me very clearly was the fact that, you know, the first race they were saying, well, it's all about the overcut now rather than the undercut. The undercut is dead. And that was based on their knowledge of what was going on in Australia. And then, you know, last Grand Prix we saw, actually no, the undercut is very much alive. It depends how the car treats the tyres.
Yeah.
And I like that, because it used to be undercut or nothing. And I never blamed Pirelli for you know, all the stuff with the high deck tyres. They did exactly what they were asked to do.
Yes.
But I do think this year they're being able to show what they're actually capable of when they're trying to make a racy tyre. And they seem to have done a very good job, you know, because people can follow now without the cars shedding rubber all over the place like a balding dog.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, that's pushing it back to a bit more of an aerodynamic formula, because some cars seem to be slightly better at it than others. But in general, you can follow closely, or closer, which is good, because where braking distances are obviously way, way shorter, you need to be able to pounce from a way back and do it. I think one of where you were saying about how it's visually, oh my god, what was that, Smithy? Where it was, you've got to think about like surprise, right, and then like dive for it. I think that's why it makes it so much more visually impressive, is because you've got that going on alongside having to jink out in a car that is now much faster around the corners, and you're able to be more aggressive. So visually, when someone does make a dive, you see that their balls are entirely invested in what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even moves made further down the grid from drivers that maybe you wouldn't consider to be natural overtakers have been incredibly impressive. Immediately leaping to mind were the Haas boys in China.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Grosjean is capable of a fiery move when, you know, the mood takes, but K-Mags, you know, I always saw him as, you know, I think he has pace, but I always saw him as...
passive.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, I see him kind of like a reverse Jarno Trulli, you know, because Trulli was always good over one lap, but tended to come away in the race.
Mm-hmm.
And especially early in Magnussen's career, I saw him the other way round, that his quality was never, for me, staggering.
No.
But in the race, he always tended to move forward, particularly at the start of his career, you know, when he got the odd podium, and, you know, he was a bit of a cheeky monkey in his day.
Yeah.
But to see what he's capable of in a car that, let's be honest, is a bit of a duffer, you know, that excites me. I think what excites me the most, actually, now I think about it, is the fact that there is competition from the first cars to the last cars.
Absolutely, and even McLaren and Sauber, who are the rear of the grid, aren't detached from it necessarily, and so on a good day they can be sticking it up in there as well, and causing a little bit of a ruckus with various people, which I think is great.
Yeah, I mean, they are making overtakes. They're not behind. They're in the pack. It's just, I mean, the thing is, they call it the midfield, but it's not really the midfield if there's nothing behind it.
No, it's everything else.
It's everything that isn't a Mercedes, a Ferrari, or questionably a Red Bull. But the fact that it's so close, you know, that really pleases me. And I know the top three teams are way too far ahead, really, for it to be acceptable. But if you suspend that for just a moment, and if you set that to one side, I think the Formula reset has been... Mate, no!
That was ridiculous.
No! What did you do?
I binned it out of the complex. That was silly. That was silly. Never mind.
That's my job.
Never mind. We can have some on boards with you. I was having a decent lap as well. Never mind. Burn from the back. Where are you? That's...
Okay, well then I'll
let's give you some screen time.
I'll let you carry on.
No, I agree with what you were saying about because it isn't everyone else, but we always get that at the beginning of a new formula, quote unquote. You will always have a larger disparity across car performance because it's the haves and have-nots of Formula One. It's just the nature of the beast. I think what's really impressed me though is that yes, you've got the top three that are kind of like a second and a half, maybe clear, up to a second maybe. And then just how close everyone is behind. Because when you look historically back over rule changes, quite often you have a very rigid team-by-team like order of, you know, that every race, fourth will be Williams, fifth would then be Force India, sixth would be, I don't know, Toro Rosso or Haas, whatever. But because it's been so mixed up, and it's also been really driver dependent, per race, because you have to have that weekend set up and going well for you and carry that momentum forward. It's been much closer than what most rule changes have been, so that gives me quite a lot of hope. So does actually the fact that you can't get away with a mistake in these cars. You lose that back end, you're fucked.
No, I actually couldn't agree more. You've summed it up perfectly. Because usually what happens is we get a new formula and someone nails it and the rest of them are looking like chumps in comparison. And to have Mercedes and Ferrari so well matched, I mean, it's, you know, the Mercedes is obviously the better qualifier, but I think really the Ferrari is the better car. I just braked so early there that I wiped off all my time.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. I was 2/10 of a second up, but never mind. I'm coming in now, so I can back off a little bit and actually contribute to this podcast.
No, it's all good.
So, for me, like the fact that Mercedes are not running away with it, that once you get past the top three, the cars, it could be anyone's day. I mean, I think, realistically speaking, the Williams is the best of the cars.
Yeah, they just only have one driver that's capable.
Yeah, they just have one capable driver. Although, to be fair, like I've had to stick up for Stroll this week. I see so much quite ignorant abuse of him, actually.
Yeah. Because they just see him as a rich boy. They've not looked at his previous history.
No. And actually, there's a comment on one of my videos from Jay, who was saying, well, I think you give Stroll too much credit because, you know, he had the best engineers, he had the best team behind him because, you know, the money. But all I want to say to that really is that's how you win in motorsport.
Yeah. No, it's no different to the situation you get yourself into in Formula One.
Precisely.
Alonso may be the best driver out there, but he's not got the money with all the best engineers and all the best engine. So yeah, it's the cookie crumbles. It's the rich man's sport, unfortunately, and nothing will change that. Even if they are talking about cost capping and all of that stuff still again, it won't change. So yeah.
No, I mean, for me, I think Stroll definitely deserves to be there, and I don't think we've really seen what he's capable of yet. No,
but
now, you know, he could turn out to be a total dud. He could totally fluff his first season. I am prepared to admit that. I just don't think 3 seasons in, after 3 DNFs, all of which, and certainly 2 of which, you can't really dispute were not his fault. I just don't see how people can draw conclusions about him. You know, people comparing him to Maldonado, for example. I think that's really short-sighted.
Yeah, I'm bored of Maldonado memes as well. There's certain websites where it doesn't matter what's going on, like where they're doing. I think I called What the F1 out on it. And I was saying, why is everything that you're saying consistently negative and out for getting like cheeky memes in? And then when you go into the comments, everyone's all like, Pasta agrees. Poor Pasta, now without any work whatsoever, because no one will touch him, because everything has just got Pasta as approved written all over it, and you think, poor guy.
He's the Craig David of motorsport.
Exactly. But yeah, it's boring because it's all negative, and so Stroll is now like the latest person that they'll go for. McLaren as a team is the thing that they'll go for. If he's not able to show anything soon, Van Dorn will be next on that list, depending on how crash happy Palmer is, because it's the united in hate. And I feel so sorry for whoever that is, because it's such a high cooker pressure environment, and you kind of think, oh. So yeah.
Well, you've touched there on a particularly spicy enchilada.
Oh, nom, nom, nom.
That was one of my topics for this episode. Why don't we dip into that?
Spicy.
You know, early on, you know, get a bit of spicy sauce on the go.
Yeah.
Disparity between teammates.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels that this season, disparity between teammates is bigger across more teams than I can ever recall.
And I think it's because the cars are harder to drive, they're faster, and you've got to have bollocks. And it brings out the racer, not the drive. Because beforehand, you were always driving to the tyres to a degree, but you were so engineered into you must run to a certain sector point or a delta time. And so actually it rewarded consistency by being able to nail 99% of the time, 99% of the things, if that makes sense. Whereas now, actually, if the tyres run longer than before, then that's fantastic. Oh, is that a yellow flag out somewhere? Oh, never mind. So beforehand, a lot of people were kind of like, right, I'm only driving it constantly at 95%. Now, I can go to 100%, and I think that's where you'll see the racers the guys that can hang it out at 100% of the time for longer. But also because the field is that much more closer together and it's so driver dependent, if someone has a shit lap and is half a second off their teammate, it's no longer the difference between 10th and 14th, it's 10th and 20th.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
GP2.
Yeah, they're
or F2,
they're
rather.
punished a lot more for mistakes. I think it does disadvantage some of the newer drivers, to be honest, because as I said in one of my videos, people like Van Dorn, people like Stroll, they've trained for a formula that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
To some degree. But when I think about teammates this season that are fairly evenly matched, I can name really only the Toro Rosso boys.
Yeah. True.
And then Haas they sort of yo-yo, don't they? But
Yes.
they're never both consistent.
No. But the Haas guys are... I don't know if it's because of this whole I've not had a clean weekend, so therefore I'm so disadvantaged. This reminds me very much of mid-90s, late 90s teams. And Sauber used to get accused of this quite a lot, was they would hire in two drivers and one would always go well and one would always go shit. And then it would depend on who was like favoured as to who would get like top dollar. And I think there's also not just which driver's going well, but it also questions, can a team fully run two cars perfectly all the time as well? So
Oh, I got pipped by Gutierrez
oh dear,
seconds before the end of the session, but
still
I'm
through.
very much on my own. Oh, Kvyat closed the gap a little bit, but there was basically half a second either side, which tells me I'm in for a lonely race.
Aww,
Rory.
that's good. I'm so worried. Well, I was 1.2 seconds up on my lap with a couple of mistakes before I binned it, which was a big mistake. So that would put me around you-ish. So it could well be a little mini inter-teamy.
Anyway, do not worry, my friend, because I'm about to go out in this session. I can tell you that. I don't have the pace for the top 10.
He says.
Unlike the real Force Indias. But yeah, getting back onto the teammate topic. I think for me the glaring surprise has probably been Van Dorn, and I know it's hard to judge this early, but you know, Palmer's way off Hülkenberg, but you don't need to put him in the same car to know that.
No, but I think what surprised me with Palmer is there is flashes of I could get it together eventually again, and he's always been a driver that grows over the course of a championship, because it took him 4 years to win GP2, and when he did win it, he'd done exceptionally well. But you don't get that length of time in Formula 1. I know we've covered that before. But Van Dorn, when he's been in Super Formula, which must always be said like that, please. Again, he had some races where he was absolutely blinding. Other races, completely in the wilderness. And I wonder if there is a consistency thing there with Van Dorn as well. But what a horrible environment to be starting your F1 career properly in a team that seems to have no direction, rudderless, busy trying to kill each other with I hate you more Honda, no I hate you more McLaren, shareholders who just seem completely invisible to the world, and a team that's imploding.
See, the thing for me is, like, I think Van Dorn can have a bad year and come away from it because they aren't going to replace him.
No.
Who's mental enough to go into that scene?
Especially if Alonso stays, because you've got someone driving like an animal and busy cursing the team. And essentially that team, especially now with the whole indie thing that's going on, which I think is actually quite fabulous, but they're now basically having to play pander to Fernando to keep him happy because he's all that they've got to pin everything onto now. So whoever goes there is going to be so in the shade as a number 2. And I think actually what it does do, I think, is highlight Jenson Button's ability to have kept calm and think of England throughout those last couple of years. Because I think we're now seeing actually, no, he may not have been quite at Alonso's level all of the time, but you can see the difference between the two.
I think Button's pure class up and down.
Oh yeah, I'll be interested to see what he does when he comes back to Monte Carlo.
I found it particularly interesting though that it was like, so Jensen, are you going to go to the test in Bahrain? He was like, no mate.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to be in that car as little as I'm contractually obliged to be.
Yeah. It did make me laugh. So yeah, no one wants to touch it with a barge pole. And I can't quite work out with McLaren. Yes, the Honda engine is shit. What's the car like? Because by all accounts, that's not fabulous either. But you'll never be able to tell if you can't put it on the limit.
Well, I don't know. The jury's out. Like, the pundits have sort of... They fall into two camps. There are people who think it's actually quite good, and that the engine is letting it down. And there are others like Gary Anderson who say, well, it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Like my corner there. But he did give the caveat that, well, the drivability of the engine will have an effect on how it looks, so don't jump to any conclusions. What I found quite telling was that suddenly they managed to hook up everything in the second day of the Bahrain test, and Van Dorn put it fourth. Yeah. Now, I know testing pace means next to nothing, but I do actually think they have the bare bones of a competitive car, actually. You don't need to be... it's not a massive leap of faith to make that assumption, because you can see what Alonso's capable of doing.
Yeah, and he's able to drive it and battle and hold on to positions that he really shouldn't be in. So to be able to wrestle that car around must show something about it.
I think he's fundamentally got a good car under him. It's just a case of tuning it.
Yeah.
I'm going offline now because I'm already a second down because I fucked up a corner. So I'm just going to chill out on this lap and talk McLaren. I've actually fallen in love with McLaren during this period.
Was that because they're now
back
marker reverse? Yeah.
No, but I started to realise that, if they didn't get on top of it, we could really be looking at an F1 that doesn't contain McLaren at some point, and that would be a tragedy.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm sick of the criticism of them, to be honest. It's wearing me down now. I can't imagine how demoralising it is for the team.
It's
like,
cheap shots, isn't it?
They don't need fucking Maldonado memes and like I actually WTF1 I made a comment on their Instagram. Actually, they'd made a joke. Someone had there was a McLaren Honda post on Instagram, and it was like a video of Stoffel Van Dorn leaving the pits on the second day of the Bahrain test. And it said, click to hear. And someone had written, hear what? The sound of it breaking down. And I felt compelled to step in. I was like, well, first of all, that's not even funny. But secondly, like, that comment would only work on a day where, they actually broke down. Like, why? Where is this coming from? I think the key has been and will be Honda taking the problem seriously, and I'm not saying McLaren's totally without blame here. No, but I'm a keeper of the faith, man. I'm a keeper of the faith. I think eventually this relationship will come good and prove to be a smart move. I think they're taking the pain now rather than slipping into irrelevance as a championship contender the way Williams have. There comes a point, you can't stay dominant forever. And there comes a point where you have to decide, do we want to really be a championship contender? Do we want to be a works-backed championship challenger, or do we just want to be on the grid? And they've chosen, and it might not work, but they've chosen to try and be relevant to the championship. And I think that's to be applauded. And they could have sat back and stayed a midfielder, with Mercedes power, customer Mercedes power. But is that really the F1 people want? All these people that are making comments saying, well, they should ditch Honda. Like, those people actually think about what F1 would look like if everyone took that. If everyone took that attitude, we just have a grid full of horses.
Mm.
And I know there are some people who want that. There are actually people who argue F1 should be a single make formula, and there's not enough backhanded slaps in the world to bring them in line. I just think get off their back, but at the same time, bringing it round back onto actual topic again.
Yeah.
Because we all have a digression here. Van Dorn does need to show something.
Yes, he does. He does.
I know maybe 3 rounds in is perhaps a bit early to be making ultimatum calls, but he does need to be showing better than he has been. Same for Palmer.
Yeah.
Palmer's only here. I want to get something very clear here. I like Jolyon Palmer. I do think he fucking complains too much. And the other week I awarded him the Paul de Resta honorary award for achievement.
I saw that.
In complaining. But, by the same measure, I do like him. I think when he's not fucking whinging, he's a good presence in Formula One. And, he's a British driver, which means, I'm going to have a certain level of affection for him anyway.
Mm.
But the fact remains that he's only there because Renault didn't want to offer K-Mags a multi-season deal.
Yeah.
And the only reason I see for that is either they didn't have faith in K-Mags, or they're hoping to replace Palmer or K-Mags with someone else next year. Whether that be a delusion that they can pull Alonso in at the end of his McLaren contract, whether that's they're aiming for bringing Grosjean back, which I actually think would be quite a good fit. Who knows? But
Renault have got some good development drivers in the pipeline as well, so there's a few popping out.
I mean, the fact is, if they'd been willing to offer K-Mags a 2-season deal, I don't think he would have gone to Haas. And I know people say, well, it was a no-brainer. It's not a no-brainer. It's never a no-brainer. If you've got a seat in a works team, a historically competitive works team, and you're offered a seat with a customer team, like multi-year deal or not, and I appreciate he's just trying to stay in F1 at this point, but multi-year deal or not, the mark of a good driver is you stay and you fight for the better seat. You don't just run away with your tail between your legs to a safe bet.
Because what does it say about K-Mag that's the 3rd season he's been in F1 with a 3rd different team? You start to think, why you move? So it's a bit confused, and especially because you're right, because the Endstone team, under all of its different names, have historically always had peaks and troughs, but they've always come back. Every single time. There's not like... It's like they have a 10-year flip-flop. Because mid-90s, mega competitive. Slipped down to the back of the grid down at 2000. Back there again in time for 2004, 2005. Back down the end again at the end of the noughties. Back up the front a bit more towards the middle of this year. And you can see it's kind of getting again. And Hülkenberg, on those single-lap paces, excellent driver, showing his class... after I think actually a year and a half of being a bit mediocre, and he needed this refresh so badly, and he's taken that opportunity with both hands and is really showing it. And so you can see inherently that there is good pace in that Renault and a good foundation for them to build on it. If only they can make it now work from just being one lap to a whole weekend and a whole race. And Palmer's shown, like Bahrain, first time in Q3, great. But he needs to close that gap and show progression. And the same with Van Dorn. The gap's too big. And I think if he chops away at that gap and is able to make it better over the course of the season, that would be great. But when you look at pre-season testing, those are two of the drivers that had the least amount of laps over the whole of pre-season. So I feel like they're coming in their back foot anyway, because Palmer had about 25 laps before in all of pre-season. Van Dorn weren't much better. And so you kind of think, when are they going to get a break?
that is worth considering, actually, and credit to you for bringing it up, because I'd overlooked that, actually, but you make a very good point there. I don't know.
That was a good lap.
It was. That's why I tried to shut up all the way through it. I don't know where it came from.
The inner depths of your Taco Bell. So yeah, it's.
But you know, I said in my my F1 career playthrough that, you know, I started, you know, mid-season started talking about like plans for the overall career, and it's probably going to be like a multi-game career, of course, because I don't make videos often enough. But I said, like, if I was genuinely in this position, like if I was genuinely an upcoming F1 driver, which team would I transition to at this point? Renault or McLaren. Because they're going to take you early, and they are going to come good.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're going to come good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, you know, particularly Renault, and I, to be honest, to see how they've progressed over the first 3 Grand Prix, should get people taking them seriously again. And I know maybe the track just suited them well, but I don't think it's just that. I think, like McLaren, and Renault are going to be teams that go forward all season, because, you know, remember, McLaren have been fighting it out with some midfield teams, even though they've got an inherently unreliable engine, and by their own admission, the engine is detuned. So once they get on top of this problem, and they will over the course of the year, I really do think they will. Particularly now there's no token system, so they can develop the balls off the engine. I actually expect to see both teams take pretty significant steps forward over the year. Be very interesting to see how it pans out, but those are not teams I would be writing off at this stage.
No, and this is a development race season, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of teams who I had written off, but that was a bit short-sighted, our old buddies over at Force India. Dragging points out where they have no place being.
Yeah, because Sergio Perez has been extremely, not negative, but quite damning of where the car is. And they've got a package coming, I think, is it for Barcelona?
They do. The car is, I believe, overweight quite significantly.
Yes, because there was the news feed where they was basically telling everyone, get on a diet, you fatties. And you're just thinking, what are they going to do? Chop off a limb? It's so bad. And I think what they've shown, actually, is not necessarily their one-lap pace, but their ability to... Well done, mate. Through to Q3.
I'm really sorry I got into Q3, which
No, this is fine, because it means that we've actually talked F1 properly all the way through, instead of going... What was K-Mag doing 4 seconds off the pace? That's shit.
Boo. Firing. No, they... And also Ocon, actually, I have to say...
Good race driver.
Yeah, tying it into the disparity between teammates. He's obviously not got the measure of Perez.
No.
But isn't he looking good? Over race distance.
Yes, and I think what it's showing is that they don't have the one-lap pace, but they do have the race pace, and they clearly have a car that fundamentally is quite drivable and racy, because when you look at them over the course of the race itself, he's not like a minute behind Perez, which is like a second a lap or anything like that. He's more like about 15-20 seconds behind, which is fine. But he's always, you can see him always battling around in a race somewhere. And that 3-wide move at Australia for the final point is great. And it gave me a little ejaculate. It was great. But the problem was, sorry, not the problem. That historically, Force India have always had a 2-car scoring problem. So when you look back to earlier on in this decade, yes, you'd have...
Fisichella, right?
Yeah, Fisichella would maybe get a point or two. Then when Hulkenberg was there or Di Resta was there, Liuzzi couldn't score worth a damn for a couple of points. He'd like do something at the beginning of the year and something at the end of the year, and they go, okay, it might come good next year. Then you'd have Sutil, who would go up and down over the course of it all. And so they've never consistently had 2 drivers who you can kind of think on week in, week out, yeah, they're going to battle for points. It's always been one that leads the other slightly, until you had Perez and Hulkenberg. And that seemed to work very well for a season, and then kind of the doors, I think, came off of Hulkenberg. I think because he was disinterested, and that's why Renault has revitalised him. And so for me, this year with the new sponsorship, I personally really like the pink livery. I wish they'd gone a bit more neon-y, but so that it can make your eyes bleed a little bit. But this is the first time I've seen in ages where it's not necessarily the drivers, but also the whole team is packaged as a 2-car deal and are able to deliver on that week in, week out.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I have to say, when they did pair Hulkenberg and Perez, I thought that was a masterstroke.
Oh yeah.
I sort of really took VJ seriously when I saw he was making moves like that.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, okay, you're the real deal here. Like when he first took over, after the Midland Spiker debacle, I really saw Force India as like a 1 to 3 season project.
Yeah.
And I'm very pleased they proved me wrong.
Yeah. They have had more staying power than VJ's ability to not get imprisoned, which I think is actually quite. Well, he got arrested this week, didn't he? Lol.
Oh, VJ.
Oh, VJ. We like your F1 team. We don't necessarily like your law ability, but there we go.
F1 is good, fraud is bad. That is our takeaway message.
Exactly. They both begin with F, but one's acceptable and one's not. But yeah, it's been fascinating because I think I was very much the same, especially when you think it went from Jordan to Midland to Spiker in 3 years. What must that have been like for a team? And then you've got the rebuilding, and I think you're right that that's the point where Force India transitioned from me to we're making up the midfield to we're going to solidly be what Jordan used to be, and we'll hound that top 3 and we'll pick up the pieces where we can as the plucky underdog that's not last.
Yeah, I mean, what they're going for is like the privateer championship.
Yeah.
Which, historically Williams have pretty much had a monopoly on since Jordan's left the sport. But I think, they'll never be a world championship outfit.
No.
I don't think. I think they should be, but I don't think they'll ever be able to negotiate the deal required to get them there.
No.
I see them as a big threat to dislodging Williams.
Absolutely. And when Red Bull if Red Bull have another like 2014-esque season, because they've never ever been top dog whenever rules change, and we've seen that yet again this year. Give Adrian Newey all the plaudits and pundits of what he can get as a aerodynamicist, or whatever his follow-up team that's scooping up his pieces whilst he goes fishing do. They aren't the best at reacting to a new formula straight off the bat, and we're seeing that again. And so whenever things like that happen, and say Red Bull have a poor season, or Mercedes eventually start slipping back down again, because they will, it's the nature of the beast.
I think they're on the tipping point now, to be honest, but continue.
No, agree. Force India, instead of Williams now, are the team who I think can pick up the pieces and be that we'll yoink a third, we'll get a front row grid here and there, we'll get the odd win when we get towards the end of a formula. Because when I think of like 1999, great example, even 2009, again at the end of a formula of change, that's when that kind of team's able to peak, because the gains, are so tiny, and you're talking of hundredths of a second and thousandths of a second, not tenths per change. That was a bit rambly, sorry, but yeah.
No. You were bang on, actually. You were bang on the button. I mean, it ties into what we were talking about towards the end of last season, actually, that, I think Red Bull will eventually come good, but I think realistically we're coming to the end of the Mercedes era now. We're about to enter the Ferrari era, but I think it will be quite short, and I expect it to be a Renault era before too long.
That's a good point.
And then Red Bull sort of come back into the picture, and I'm wondering if them not being the de facto works Renault outfit, which they were when they won championships, I wonder if that's going to start hurting them.
Yeah.
And whether, because what they're lobbying for, I don't know if you saw, is that for 2020 they want to have Cosworth.
Ooh.
well, they didn't specifically name Cosworth, but they said we want a non-manufacturer engine company in the sport.
That kind of only leaves a couple, doesn't it?
Yeah, which, let's be honest, it leaves Cosworth.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody else out there. Mechachrome is still going, but is the technology they're working with relevant? Who knows? I don't know enough about what Mechachrome do now. I believe they make stuff for helicopters.
Amazing.
So, yeah, I mean, who are you going to go to?
Ghostbusters! Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, like Pure went out of business.
Yeah.
VW, Audi Group, that just have no interest in coming into the sport, which you think would be a natural partnership for Red Bull, being Austrian.
Yeah, and that has been mooted so many times that I think the time has kind of come and passed for now.
Yeah.
The only olive branch for that was, didn't Audi send a representative to the latest F1 meeting?
Yes, I believe he did, but I still don't see anything coming out of it. They're too committed to world endurance.
Exactly, and that world is growing, whereas F1 is still trying to stop the hemorrhage.
Exactly.
A little bit. Admittedly, doing very well with it this year, but yeah.
And then if you look at like the others that have come out and ruled out a return, Toyota have been very clear, we're not coming back.
Yeah.
Peugeot, we're not coming back. Ford, we're not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Ford were pretty emphatic that they're not coming back to F1.
Well, no, because they left under such a cloud as well, because they ended up being the customer team, and so everyone was like, oh, you've got the shitty Fords that were like 5 years old, because no one else would dare supply anything. So they're almost a victim of being too nice about what they gave.
They even mentioned that, actually. They said that other manufacturers are not necessarily willing to step up, and that Ford has been burned in the past.
Yeah.
By its commitment to making power units available. And then, you know, if you're thinking who else realistically is kicking around from the world of car manufactured them, there's not really anyone.
No.
You know, Nissan aren't going to do it. It's not really their ballpark.
Skoda.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So you need. It's going to be Cosworth. Cosworth did develop a hybrid engine for 2014, just no team took it.
Yeah.
So they in theory have a prototype unit working anyway. It need development, of course, to bring it in line with what we're running now.
Mm-hmm.
But that shows really that Red Bull are thinking along the same lines as Big Ron, that you need to be a works team to be in it. And I think they're seeing things develop the same way I am, that Renault are going to become really relevant soon, but they don't want it to be Red Bull taking the plaudits.
Yeah.
And you know, to finish off the Renault topic, the level of investment they've promised and that I've already put in, it's serious. They're super serious about winning the championship.
Exactly, and Red Bull with their rebranding of it to a Tag Heuer engine, which is really annoying, because when Renault do come good, Renault have had to sit there and deal with Red Bull's constant mudslinging of the engine's not good, You won championships with that engine, shut the fuck up. So it's just deflection. So actually, if Red Bull did do well, they're not going to go, oh, our partner's Renault. It will be with the Tag Heuer engine. And so you kind of think that Renault will be a bit like... So what happens if later on this year, Hülkenberg and that Renault car, and maybe Palmer if he's still kicking about, are level pegging with Red Bull, and that Red Bull car maybe has not come on good? At what point do Renault go, well, Red Bull, as our customer, you will be getting upgrades to your engine 2 races after our works team, and suddenly the dynamics of that relationship will change. So it's interesting that you say that they could be looking at Cosworth quite quickly, because with that resurgence of the team, at some point something's going to give, because you won't get parity. You just wouldn't.
No, I mean, you can see that now with Mercedes. Like, putting a Mercedes in the back of your car doesn't guarantee you second place.
No. Better guarantee you points in some cars.
Yeah, it does. I mean, don't be wrong. Like, it made a big difference to Mana, for example.
Oh yeah.
But
Mana, rip.
having the best engine on the grid. I mean, it doesn't mean jack, because it's all how you use it. And Mercedes have, they know the engine better than anyone, and they have mappings that they use and only they use that they're not giving out to anybody else.
Definitely.
So,
And there's one engine that we've not talked about, and that's the Ferrari engine, which has quietly got on quite nicely, hasn't it?
yeah, I think Ferrari's improvement has been like an across-the-board improvement. I don't know how I got to 7th.
I don't know how, but I was impressed.
I mean, I've not done a lap outside the 136s, so that's like a 6/10 improvement.
Caned it, mate.
Yeah, I did it without even paying attention. I actually almost interrupted you when I was on my cooldown lap before I came in, because I resolved I was only going to do one lap so we could have a proper conversation. And as I was coming through like Maggots and Beckett's, my eyes flicked up, and I was, am I 6th? What the fucking hell's going on?
Well done, mate. Well done.
I'm sorry, I was successful. There's no place here. I will hang my head in shame.
You disgrace me. You disgrace all of the Force Fail team. So, but yeah, I mean, Ferrari have had a great thing across the board. But when you're looking at other, do Toro Rosso have the Ferrari engine now? Or have they switched back?
They've switched back to Renault.
They have, yeah. So, like, Ferrari are kind of developing almost what they are developing for one. So they've kind of got that. The interesting one for me is that Sauber are now mooted to be cozying up with Honda for 2018 to give them some more stuff. And I think that'll be quite interesting because...
To me, that's a natural partnership, actually.
Yeah, it works out quite nicely because, I mean, Honda can throw some money at them, as they will be for McLaren, to sort that out, which will help that team progress. But when you're looking at that team, how much, I guess, per lap are they losing out with having last year's Ferrari engine, which wasn't necessarily a slouch, but is clearly not in development as this year. And I guess sticking with Ferrari as a whole, my big topic is what do you do with the problem that is Kimi Raikkonen?
Yeah, this is what I was really looking forward to talking about, actually. Before I answer that question, just a quick side note, I'm not derailing anything, but rumour is that Honda may actually still be looking at buying Sauber. That's what I heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't believe it's true, but
No.
just putting it out there that I've heard it on the grapevine. Yeah, Raikkonen is a mystery for me. It's, to be honest, I think he's having a magnified Daniel Ricciardo season, and I'm glad that we're really tackling this teammate disparity issue. I personally get rid of him, certainly by mid-season if things haven't improved. It's not necessarily that he's not beating Vettel. He doesn't have to beat Vettel, but he has to be beating Bottas.
Yes, and that's because it's now it's very much a +1, +2 of like drivers. You've got leads and seconds in those teams quite distinctively, and he's like not even keeping ahead of the Red Bulls when they're on their shit circuits without an upgrade. And as soon as Red Bull get into the mix, suddenly Raikkonen won't be guaranteed 3rd or 4th each race. It will be I'll be getting 5th or 6th each race, and he's too passive. I mean that was lauded when he was at Lotus/Renault/Enstone, because that was the formula that it was in, where you looked after the tyres, you kept out of mischief, you just bolted around at 95% of your pace and got the result if you were careful. Now it's back up to being 100% again. He's lost that 5% edge for me.
Yeah, he has. And for me, I think it's not acceptable for him to be in the position he's in. It's not okay. How many laps do we have?
It says 26, but it's trying to put me on a 4-stop strategy, and I'm not having that.
Yeah, it's trying to make me stop on lap 25. That's not happening. I'm going to have to be on the hards that I hate.
Yeah, it's trying to do that with me, and I'm not... Surely these tyres run longer than this.
Sorry, everyone. We're going to be very quiet now because
Whilst we work out what the fuck's going on.
And I can't stop it from making me pit on lap 25 if I try and change the strategy. Why is it doing that? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pit. I'm not pitting on lap 2, I will pit on lap 3 for a set of hards. I will then... Yeah, that's better. No, I don't want another stint. Bugger off. No. What? Codemasters, what is this? What is this? I don't know what it is.
What you want? Well, I will do my strategy on the fly. I think this has gone really... I don't like what it's trying to do with me.
No. Apparently, pitting 1 lap earlier for mediums improves my race delta by 0.4. What? And mediums are mandatory.
Oh, I hate this. This needs to be sorted.
Why can't I stop myself pitting on the last lap? It's not going to happen. Jeff, no. No, Jeff.
So I'm going for lap 7, 15 and end. Soft, medium.
I'm going lap 3 on first 3 laps on softs. Then I'm going on to hards to lap 15, and then mediums till the end.
Okay.
But those hards look like they're going to be pretty shot by the time I take them off.
Bum.
But yeah, that's what I'm doing. And apparently it is 19 seconds faster than the alternative.
I think mine was 8 seconds slower or something. I don't know. Confused me no end.
Shall we get back on topic?
Yes.
Best of luck, me old China.
And you. Let's hope I don't crash out on turn 1, lap 1.
Oh, we've got a formation lap, haven't we?
Yes. That's good. So... and then Kimi, I guess then my next thing is Antonio Giovinazzi is one of a couple of drivers who you could see that they are maybe going to groom for a future seat. What did you make of Giovinazzi in his 2 races? And do you have much opinion?
I really rated him. I did. I felt he had very bad luck in Shanghai, but I don't necessarily blame that on him. That's a bad corner anyway.
Yeah.
Many people lose it or nearly lose it there quite frequently, and given what the conditions were like, second race weekend, and he was pushing really hard.
Yeah.
Both times, I don't think you can really... I mean, in the race, maybe you could say he should have got it under control because it was a bit of a strange crash in the end.
Yeah, because he'd kind of had the corner and then had the crash, didn't
yeah. But his quali crash, at least, I really didn't see as being a problem. I mean, it's a problem if you're Sauber.
Yeah.
Of course, it costs money and it's not going to make your mechanics very happy, but I think it's all part and parcel of agreeing to take a rookie driver that, this is going to happen. But the fact is as well that, he had that accident in quali and then didn't ease off in the race. Shows me that he's got the right stuff. I think we're going to see big things from him eventually. Whether Ferrari would actually put him into the main team straight away is anybody's guess.
I'd hazard no, but...
So would I normally, but Arriva Bene and Marchione are both coming out saying, we want to be a younger team, we want to be an Italian team. We are an Italian team. They've put an Italian guy in charge of the engine program at last, even though he was born in Switzerland and people keep making jokes and upsetting them. It was a bit of a thing in the press, apparently. I don't necessarily see him as a natural fit, and I do think Raikkonen's bum must be feeling pretty hot right now.
Yeah, because they're outwardly saying you need to pick it up a bit, which I think is right. He's coasted for too many seasons now.
I think last season actually was a good season for him. I think
Yeah,
he should
second
have gone
half
out
was.
last season. I think he should have retired last season.
On a high, where with respect. I think he could be in for a bit of a sharp shock as the season continues. What the hell?
What's happened?
Oh, it's okay. It's correcting itself, but it's driven me off the circuit to then park me back on again. Okay, right, we're all good. I've got to be quiet around this.
Raikkonen very slow on the getaway there.
Oh, good to. Oh, massive smash. But I've avoided it. Yes.
For once, I was not in it, which makes me happy.
Yeah, Ericsson and Magnussen. And someone else has gone off as well. Illegal move on Gutierrez. Where is he? Oh, what? Well, that was just weird.
I just saw you drop down to the back. What's happened?
Even though it wasn't yellow flag, it then decided that I'd illegally overtaken someone that was facing the wrong way, so I've had to drop to last. But there's several cars with no front wings, so I'm just picking them off now.
Oh, that's good, because that means my early pit stop might not diddle me as hard as it normally does.
No, Gutierrez, Ericsson and Verline are all in trouble, as is Massa, who is now 18th on medium tyres, so...
Yeah, I've got Ricciardo ahead of me in 5th. He's on mediums. It seems Vettel's on mediums as well, and I'm keeping pace with them very, very easily. Nice. I'm hoping I can get past them and start slowing them down a little bit, because I'm pitting in 2 laps. Oh, Ricciardo putting the moves on Vettel there, cheeky monkey. Not something that would happen this year.
No.
My problem with Raikkonen is that it's not that he's getting it wrong, it's just that he's not even trying.
No. It was the coast up behind and then not really overtake, and then Vettel had to overtake him to then overtake someone else and like basically say this is how you do it, and then even then it took him a shitload to then go and do it again because he's too conservative.
Yeah, he just sort of seems quite happy to sit behind someone and say, well, this is my position now.
Yeah.
And for once, like that served him well, I think, in the old Ferrari that didn't have the legs to beat a lot of other cars.
Yeah.
But I think it's killing his career now.
Yes.
Because for once, Ferrari, I think arguably they've got the best car on the grid. It's the one I'd want to be driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mercedes is good in quality, but historically that's always been their strength anyway. I mean, you remember the cars they used to have where, you know, Nico Hülkenberg would put it on pole and then be 8th by the end of the second lap.
Mm-hmm.
Because it chewed through its tyres. I think they're moving back the same way. I think it was a problem they never fully shook off, and it's sort of crept back in now.
Yeah.
Whereas the Ferrari is a car that looks confident and capable in all conditions, on all compounds of tyres, particularly in hot weather and on the softer compounds. But the fact is it can keep pace with the Ferrari on a harder compound in difficult conditions, and he should be using that. Yeah. It's his job to use that. Don't crash into me, Ricciardo, please.
I'm just having the same thing with the Renaults and Haryanto. I'm not feeling happy. No Felipe.
I know I'm slowing him down because my tyres have really gone off of wall now and I'm losing time to Vettel. But yeah, staying with Kimi there. Yeah. I think it's very interesting to note that he seems happy to sit behind other cars, but he will definitely go defensive to keep Vettel behind him.
Yeah.
He hasn't lost his edge with defensive driving, so it's a very strange problem for him to have. And I think it's a similar problem that Ricciardo's having. I don't know what's happened to him, but I really, really, really rate Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Very, very highly. I still think he's a better all-round driver than Verstappen for the moment.
Agreed.
And the fact that Verstappen seems to be wiping the floor with him is very interesting to me.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting dynamics, I think, within that team. and I still think that Verstappen is considered the golden boy, and it's almost as if Ricciardo's having to say, "Don't forget about me." And I don't think, like, generally people have forgotten about him, obviously, but I think maybe, I don't know if there's like not a switching of the tide, but he needs to continue to show his class. Oh shit! No, we're okay. Oh no, we're not okay. Oh fucking Nazza, you cunt! Oh, sorry.
Let it out, mate. Let it out. Kimi just stopped me entering the pit lane.
Excellent. Oh yeah, teammate in the pits. Oh wow. I don't think there'll be points for me this round.
Nor me.
We'll get there. We'll get there. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting one for Ricciardo because to me he just suits Red Bull and that fit and that team and everything else. And yeah, he's going to need to work out. I wonder what the cars are like for suiting, because to me this is the kind of formula that would suit him really, really well, and that's what's a bit puzzling in these opening couple of races.
Well, I thought he would. I really hate these tyres.
You're on the hards.
Yeah.
Christ.
I thought he would adapt to this change very, very, very well. I'll tell you what also surprises me, actually. Guys came in to change their front wing and still managed to undercut me when I was 5th. Which is very interesting.
Really?
Yeah, I'm behind you.
Oh, I didn't change my front wing.
No, but Massa did. And he's ahead of both of us. It makes no sense.
Oh no, Massa didn't.
Oh, right. Because I've only got Gutierrez behind me.
You should also have Verline and someone else.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, you're 19th to me.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I keep thinking that we've got a 20-car grid this year. Poor Manor.
Oh, rip.
Speaking of someone who's had the opposite effect on my opinion of them, though, Kvyat seems to be...
Yeah, he's juicy.
Yeah, he's back on the boil a little bit, looking a little bit feisty. I actually thought Sainz would... I mean, that was my only pre-season prediction that I got wrong, because my exact words were that Sainz would embarrass Kvyat to death. That like his car would roll to a graceful halt at the side of the track, and then the medics would run out there and find Kvyat had died of embarrassment. But it hasn't happened. Like, this new car, which to be fair does seem to be a very good car, seems to just suit him much better. I think he's benefited from being out of the limelight again a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certain drivers who I think do better in worse cars because of the limelight. Oh, for fuck's sake, this is awful, Simon. And he to me is one of them, because he doesn't have that kind of personality that soaks up on pressure and like uses it to his advantage, whereas I think other drivers can thrive on limelight and pressure and drama.
Is it still his last season?
I don't know. Not if he continues like that.
I mean, to be fair, under the usual Toro Rosso methodology, they're both in their last season.
Yeah, that's true.
And I really think they have to let Sainz go. I don't think they will, but for the good of the sport and Sainz's career, they have to let him go.
To where?
Anywhere. Renault wanted him.
Yeah.
Give him Palmer's seat.
Oh no, that would be juicy.
It would, wouldn't it? Also, you know, Ferrari might have an opening quite soon.
Yeah, and
you know,
that would not surprise me at all.
Sainz to Ferrari?
Yeah. I can see that happening.
I'm not sure because, like, while Ferrari and Red Bull are so competitive with each other, I'm not entirely convinced that he would do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, develop a driver to hand him to a very close rival seems odd. But I agree that he would be a good fit. And I'd certainly take him over Grosjean, who's supposed to be in the, with the whole Haas deal.
Yeah.
And then Perez apparently has an under-the-table deal to replace Kimi after this year. That was the rumour, like an agreed in a motorhome behind closed doors, the same way like Ferrari took Kimi from Renault, from Lotus even.
Oh, okay, interesting.
These tyres are really shit.
Oh, drive-through penalty speed in the fucking pit lane. Oh my god, what a shit race I'm having! Sorry.
You and me both, mate.
This is amateur hour at its finest.
But at least discussion isn't amateur hour for once.
No.
We're actually being able to talk.
That's true. Yeah, so that would be interesting with Perez, because there's an abundance of talent on the grid. I don't look at anyone and go, you shouldn't belong.
No, it's the first time in a while I feel like I can say that. If I had to get rid of anyone, it would probably be Palmer at this stage, but, you could argue Palmer, Ericsson and K-Mags, if you were being brutal, would be the ones that, could potentially be replaced with someone better, but I think all of them actually deserve their place at the moment. But sorry, yes. I interrupted your thought there, please continue.
That's okay, I can't remember what it was now, so it's oh good.
It was about Perez and Ferrari.
Oh yeah, so if they're looking at, I want a younger, more flamboyant and passionate team and things like that, Perez would still fit, because he's that right balance of, I've been in F1 for X amount of years, and I'm showing my pace, and have that flamboyancy that just works. So that could be rather fabulous for Perez. The reason why I was also picking Sainz is that he's also still in that I'm still new-ish mentality, and popping up with lots of crazy results, and he's curbed his enthusiasm for crashing most of the time.
Yeah, I rate Sainz super high. I think he would be an excellent fit at Ferrari. I still don't necessarily see it happening for logistical reasons, but I would love to see it. But the more I think about it, the more I think it's a no-brainer that Perez will end up at Ferrari next season. I don't think they'll let Giovinazzi come in quite so soon, and they might place him somewhere, although I don't know where, because Haas seem to be very resistant to taking who Ferrari want them to take. So I really don't know what's going to happen there. And
if the Ferrari relationship continues to move away from Sauber, that doesn't put them in anywhere. And obviously with 10 teams now instead of 12, that's 2 less places on the grid to put a development-y type driver.
Yeah, I mean, because let's be honest, he'd probably be at Manor right now.
Yeah. And where would you put someone like Red Bull? Have another luxury problem. Where the hell do you put Pierre Gasly if he's coming in at any point?
That was my point about Toro Rosso, because like Ricciardo and Verstappen are taking up the seats that either Kvyat or Sainz could move into, particularly Sainz.
Yeah.
And neither of those guys seem to be going anywhere quickly. I really thought actually that they might lose Verstappen to a bigger team, but they moved quick enough to get him out of Toro Rosso to sort of head that off.
Yeah.
And I think Max, I could actually see Max losing patience with Red Bull if they don't get on top of their problems.
He's going to be a person that becomes almost Schumacher-esque because of the hype that follows him and the way how he conducts himself. Where and Hamilton is the other guy that you could argue with this as well, where the driver is bigger than the team and is allowed to be, and that's where I think his his ability to break the Red Bull mould will lie. Because the only other person that's managed it successfully is Vettel.
Yeah. And it was the same thing with him, right? He was a 4-time world champion.
Yeah.
He could go where he wanted. I really could see Verstappen moving on from Red Bull if they're not on top of it next season.
Yeah, it's too quick for him to... Because he's still in that problem where it will be dummies out the pram if he left at the end of this season, and who would... And you, in a similar way to Pascal Wehrlein, Princess Pascal, you've got to be careful of talent versus dummy toys out the pram, and what are you going to do to... Where's your line in the team, essentially, for that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more, for me, the fact that he's so impatient. Everything he does reeks of impatience.
Yes.
All the moves he makes. I mean, some of them are staggering, some of them seem a bit dunderheaded. But it's all impatience. He wants to win. He wants to win yesterday. And I don't see him as the kind of guy who would be loyal to a team if he felt it was inhibiting his career. I think right now he's still young and fresh enough off the back of signing his promotion contract with Red Bull that he's going to honour it. But I think he probably is already a little bit pissed off because he, along with the rest of the world, probably thought Red Bull were going to be dominant out of the gate this year. And, you know, I mean, it all comes down to what his dad says as well. I mean, we've got Bottas on a 1-year deal at Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's thinking that, you know, Alonso wants to be there and they want Alonso there. But could Verstappen put himself forward? Because if he waits, Kimi and Bottas are going to be replaced by the end of this year. Where's he going to go after that?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, maybe even mid to late season, he's going to start looking at what are my opportunities beyond this season if I don't leave Red Bull now.
Yeah.
And actually, now I'm talking about it, I've convinced myself that's the case. I actually find that a really compelling angle.
It is interesting because it's not very often where you have several teams that are at the same kind of tipping point of changing of the guard. Because, and we've not even touched on Mercedes yet, but Bottas needs... It's, again, we're early days, but we're showing the difference between what is a World Championship winner and what potentially at the moment is not. He may have it in the future, but I think what he's showing at the moment is... can I hack it being in the top car of week in and week out? And at the moment the answer is no, from me anyway. But so you've got one move going there, and those types of teams don't do 1-year deals.
No.
Do they?
No, you're right, they don't. It's all very odd. It makes for a very exciting situation because it depends on the driver and how pragmatic they are in their worldview, right? Because you've got arguably 4 very, very, very interesting seats opening up this season, and maybe even more depending on how things pan out. Because you've got that second Renault drive, which if you're young and fresh, if you're a Carlos Sainz, that could ultimately be an incredibly shrewd move for you if you've got the patience to see it through.
Yeah.
You've got a seat at McLaren coming up because everyone expects Alonso to bail. Whether he ends up at a better team or not, people just assume he's done. You've got the Bottas seat, which I'm becoming increasingly convinced he will no longer be in.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I do actually rate Bottas, and I'm not sure what's gone wrong for him, but it has gone very, very wrong so far.
It's not his team. I think it's that simple.
Yeah, part of me thinks he should never have left Williams. The good news is for him is that I think he probably has the door open to him to go back to Williams.
Oh yeah, because Massa will be off at the end of this year, so he can just return and slot back in.
And Williams still seem to have a lot of love for him.
Yes.
For me, it would be a no-brainer that he goes back to Williams to partner Stroll, and then he goes on to have a sort of Frentzen career.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Ferrari seat, which is the one with, I would say, that's the easiest door to a championship out of all of them. That if you want to win a championship next season, I think Ferrari is the seat to be in. And I know it's early in this season to be saying that, but I genuinely believe it. Because that car is just too fundamentally good. That I don't think they can balls it up.
Yeah.
I mean, have you actually... I don't know if you have. I don't know if many people have, but I have actually taken some time to... You know, you can, like... Lots of places online, you can actually watch cars through particular corners.
Yeah.
And I've taken time to actually really compare the Ferrari and the Mercedes through some corners. And that Ferrari is like nothing else. It's so planted, it's so sharp and true. And even the Mercedes doesn't look anywhere near as good. And if you've got that basis, even though it'll be a new car next year, if that's your basis, you have to work very fucking hard to mess it up. Whereas the Mercedes just doesn't look as comfortable, and particularly in dirty air, actually.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, and that's like that's a reoccurring theme, isn't it? That they can't handle.
They can't follow.
Yeah, they can't handle actually being in the pack. And that goes right the way back to when it was Rosberg and Schumacher in the car that they struggled with that, and they've clearly still not cracked it.
No, I mean, I think that's why they. Do you think that's why they focus so much on quali pace?
Yes. And that's why they've got that half-second quali boost that they can pull out from nowhere. Because they need to be ahead, so that
the car doesn't work.
Yeah. Similarly, they also need to think about not just into team strategies, which is what they've been focusing on in the last couple of years because they've always been out front. Now the enemy is not from within, so they're going to have to look at who can have a different strategy, and we start to see like the smallest of branches of strategies now between the two drivers, because it's not just about them anymore. And I know a lot of people bashed Ferrari last year because of strategy changes and things like that didn't quite work out. This year is so much more fluid on that, and I wonder at the minute if Mercedes have kind of 100% clocked on to the fact that they're going to have to run different strategies across different cars and not have them try and run rigid because the battle's not between each other, it's now wider.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Ferrari is starting to have the same realisation, aren't they? I mean, they're already talking about actually enforcing team orders. I think team orders will actually make a difference this year, a vital difference.
Absolutely, especially in the constructors, because the constructors is going to be so much around
confirm change,
damage limitation. I think between Bottas and Raikkonen, who gets third essentially in this championship, providing Red Bull don't stick their oar in. I think it's either going to be the Red Bull drivers who decide who wins the constructors between Ferrari and Mercedes, or Bottas versus Raikkonen, depending on where the Red Bull is. Because I can see Vettel and Hamilton just trading race on race with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, this car is awful.
How many stops have you had at this point?
One and a drive-through.
Okay, so me being on hards has not benefited me at all.
So I've done soft medium, but I'm going on to hards.
I've done soft, hard, soft, and then I'll go on to mediums later. But I was running 7th quite comfortably, and now I'm out of the points again, and I've got an extra stop to make, so...
Oh, no.
I'm hoping this stint on softs goes incredibly well. What I'm finding is the pit lane is super long and slow here.
Yeah, and I was thinking that actually it's shorter but it's not. It's because the pit lane speed limit comes on so early. That's what caught me out with the drive-through, which is what's really fucked my race up. Apart from my shit driving.
I want to get points. I can't have Grosjean be ahead of me. It's not okay. Yeah. For me, they both teams have to step up with the team orders. I think it would be a sad way to end Raikkonen's career, but I think Ferrari do have the potential to kick him out of that seat.
Oh yeah.
If they're serious about winning a championship, I'd argue that they need to be doing it. And I know it would be a very inglorious way for Kimi to go, and I don't think he deserves it. But could I honestly say, in Arriva Bene's position, I wouldn't do it? No.
Oh no. If I was Arriva Bene, I would already be constructing it, but I'd be doing it in a way where Kimi announces his retirement, because I think if they say he's out the door, oh ye social media people will be up in arms. I think pundits and actually people inside the F1 paddock will go, oh, that's a bit of a harsh way of doing it, but actually it's the right thing to do. But Kimi has got this bizarre untouchable status where people refuse to say bad about him, but actually it's time to get beyond that now, please.
I think we have a habit of writing drivers off far too young, but I still think you shouldn't be celebrating your 38th birthday in the F1 seat of a championship challenging team.
Really?
Really. I think 38 is too old. I do, I'm sorry, I do, I can't help it. I think it's because, I'm only just at the start of my 30s and I realise how fucking sluggish I am compared to my 20s. I've always sort of hated it that, 35, bye-bye. I think that's stupid. But at the same time, it wouldn't happen if there wasn't some truth to it. That's my assessment, and I think someone like Webber went out at the perfect time. A time when he was as fast as his teammate.
Yeah.
In certain metrics at least. And, that Christian Horner came out and said, well, I was a little bit surprised and not surprised, but what did surprise me was his pace. And he's done the right thing with WEC as well.
Yeah.
Come in, win the title, right, thanks, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Good on him. I've got a lot of love for Mark Webber, and I think he's enjoying his retirement now, and so he should.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah, I think my thing with Raikkonen is I just don't think his heart's in it, and that's why I think he should go. I don't necessarily think it's about speed or... Well, yeah, there is a speed problem, but there's...
I don't know. I don't think there's a speed problem. I think there's a consistency and a focus problem. Because if you think about it, if you look at... Was it Shanghai and Bahrain that he now holds the lap record?
Yeah.
And you think, where the fuck did that pace come from?
Yeah, and do you not think that that's dangerous to be doing that when you've had a race where you've been slower all the way through and then you bang in a really fast lap at the end? I think that causes so many more questions than what it actually does show pace. Yes. I would not do that, ever. And he's done that consistently throughout his entire career, which to me always goes back to that whole thing of when Kimi's on it, but actually Kimi only wakes up for a few races a year. And I think he's been trading on his World Championship and his earlier success for far, far, far too long. And he does show flashes of brilliance, but he is his optimum peak is too much. It's too pointy and too narrow. And that's where I think Vettel has grown on me over the years, because actually, apart from 2014, and I actually think parts of 2016, he's got a much wider window of opportunity. Hamilton's showing it again. People will know I'm not exactly the world's happiest Hamilton lover, but again, he is showing his class of being able to take another type of car and wring its neck out where he can. So it's interesting that you have that, I think, with different
I think
people.
You and I are coming at this from slightly different standpoints, maybe, but I will agree 100% on one thing, which is my opinion of Vettel has gone up hugely since he moved to Ferrari.
Yes.
Both as a mature driver, and I caveat that the same way you do, that I think 2016 he lost his head a bit and he was a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
But that said, my opinion overall has definitely improved on him massively.
Yeah.
And I think he is showing his class. A lot of people used to say he's a guy who can only lead from the front, he can't race. I think he's pretty consistently showing that that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think he's showing he's quite cerebral, actually, in a way that maybe I didn't appreciate before.
Prost-like.
Yeah. Hamilton, on the other hand, I'm still of the opinion that if he's not out front, he gets into a flap. And he does have these flashes of brilliance, but I think when it comes to winning from a disadvantaged position, Vettel is the better driver.
Agreed, as well. I think my issue with Hamilton is exactly what you've said. I still don't see him as a team player. Ever. It's always, why have you put me on this strategy? Why have you done this? Why have you done that? I can't go any faster. I can't do this, that, and the other. And he's so quick to throw the bathwater out with the pram and the bath and, I don't know, the entire soap shop with bath bombs in. It's just... It makes me despair, because then when he says at the end, oh yeah, it's all us working together as part of a team, #blessed, I think that's why I dislike him personally. He does seem quite
disingenuous, doesn't he, actually?
Yeah, because in the heat of the moment, yes, you may be questioning everything under the sun, but then when you come out and you're like, oh, I'm having a zen moment, I just think, what a load of fucking bollocks. Get away. Because it just comes off as being a wanker and disingenuous and awful. I know there's a lot of swear words in this. We'll have to put a mature rating on this podcast. But it just angers me to the point of frustration where I think... and I feel really annoyed, because as a Brit, I should be supporting the British driver and I should have some homage and some loving for it. But I just think... No, you're two-faced, and I can see him. Just no. I'm offended on the inside.
Like, for me, I've never hated him.
No, I just think.
There have been times I've actively rooted for him to have a failure, which is unlike me. Or I've laughed. I think a few years ago when he was still at McLaren, was it Canada? Where it must have been Canada, like, I don't know, 2008, where his front right suspension collapsed, and I remember just laughing my arse off. I was like, that was like season highlights for me, and I shouldn't feel that way about a driver, but it tells me something. And I will say he's a phenomenal driver. People are saying he's the best driver on the grid right now. I still think overall that's Alonso. But Alonso suffers a lot of the same problem as Hamilton, which is that he's a grumpy fucker and it's his way or the highway. And now I think about it, I think all the greats are like that.
Absolutely, there's an element of
you have to kind of be a
selfishness
dick to win in F1, don't you?
Yeah, there's an element of selfishness, and I guess for me, if you're trying to balance off being selfish with being likeable, it's a very tricky balance to have. And for me, because there is such a yin-yang between I'm selfish, I must have things my way, and #blessed, I think that's why it comes off disingenuous to me personally, and I struggle with it. Whereas Alonso, I think, is able to balance that better for me. I don't know why, necessarily.
But
Maybe
also,
because he's 100% grumpy.
Alonso's funny when he complains, whereas Hamilton's just irritating.
Yeah. He
I think the other
has a
thing
Duresta
for me-
moment, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think the other thing for me with Hamilton is that disingenuousness really does bother me. The way he says, "Oh, I'm really glad, I'm really happy that Ferrari are able to challenge us. I'm really looking forward to having races with Vettel. I really like the challenge of having a race." And then whenever he actually has to race, he complains.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Verstappen. Verstappen comes out with that all a lot, but whenever he has to overtake someone, he's complaining. It seems very odd to me. Verstappen and Hamilton both sort of have this quality where they're both capable of making some incredible moves, and then other times they just whinge.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could have been Shanghai, it could have been Bahrain. It's all sort of merged into one form now. But remember at the end of the race where Ricciardo was following Verstappen, and Verstappen was like 5 seconds down on a horse
Shanghai.
that he was coming up to lap.
Yeah.
And he was complaining that he couldn't keep up. And then Ricciardo was just right behind him, proving him wrong. Yet all the way through that race, he'd been making sort of very ballsy overtakes. And you think, what are you doing? Why is this a problem for you now when it's, before and after the race and at any other point in the race, it's been the best thing ever?
Yeah.
And Hamilton falls into that same category.
Yeah.
And it just makes no sense to me. I think the fact is about Hamilton is that he doesn't enjoy racing. He doesn't. He enjoys winning. All you've got to do is go back to any race from 2014, 15 or 16 where he loses first position in the first corner. Any one of them, pick any one at random and find me a good drive. A good, clean drive from him. In Bahrain, he loses his position into the first corner and ends up getting a penalty for making a rash move in the pit lane.
Mm-hmm.
Every race I can recall where he loses positions off the start and isn't constantly going forward, his race gets very scrappy. He might drag a result out of it in the end, but he's running wide, he's in the dirty air, he's in the dirty line, he's making too aggressive moves and losing more places than he's gaining. I think it's a mentality thing that he and Verstappen share, that for all his faults, Alonso doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see Alonso doing that. He's very methodical with his rage.
Alonso is the king of 200-mile-an-hour politics.
Yes.
No one else who I know is capable of trying to... Oh, God, I'm going to get lapped. Fucking hell. No one else I know is able to do something like that at 200 miles an hour and still be all like, yeah, by the way, I'm going to shout. Ex-Minardi driver Fernando Alonso complains that he's never had less power in his entire life.
Yeah. Although, actually, to be fair, I don't believe Minardi ever had a speed differential to the surrounding cars that Honda has now.
No, that's true.
So, last 3 laps, should we do a little sum up? Who have been your winners and losers coming into this season? Right, after 3 rounds, who do you think has been impressive? Who do you think needs to bulk their ideas up? In summary, it could be teams, individuals, drivers.
For me, the impressives are Perez and Force India and Ocon, actually, as a whole. Ocon as a racer as opposed to a qualifier at the moment. And Force India in their ability to get something out of what looked like a potentially bad situation. Hulkenberg, I think, has dramatically raised his calibre again after a couple of years of being a bit browbeaten. Haas, I think, have shown as a team, not necessarily their drivers yet. Who else is a winner? Verline, I think, on his return, and now all these pictures are coming out of him in back braces. I wish he'd have done that sooner, so that people would have kept him off his case. And Carlos Sainz, and actually, quietly, Kvyat are my winners. How about you?
I have nothing to add to that. Particularly Ocon, who I'm starting to see why he's so highly rated in a way that you couldn't see in the manner that, unlike many young drivers, like it's a thing of young drivers that they tend to be good in quali and bad in the race because they make short-sighted decisions.
Yeah.
They see it as a sprint rather than a marathon because a lot of the junior formulas it is a sprint.
Yes.
Oh, 3 wide with Button and Kvyat. That nearly ended in a massive accident. I'm not going to get any points though, unless everyone pits again. Which, according to Jeff, they have to.
That'd be interesting.
Kvyat, no. Sorry, he's showing that he can sort of sit back and play the long game, and that is not something that most young drivers are capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. And he seems like a really nice guy.
Yes.
Which, paired with Perez, and in that environment, and in that colour scheme, makes me happy on the inside.
Yep. Oh, we have to mention Esteban Ocon's pink helmet.
Oh, yeah.
That's the key word phrase now. I want that in the tags for the video.
Okay.
As a relevant search term.
Done. That'll probably get us the most views, to be fair.
And yeah, Verline, I think he's showing his class again. After he's had a very difficult year. I'm going to say a year.
Yeah.
To come back in with no testing time at all, put the car where he did in quali, and then to finish 1 position outside the points with a year-old engine.
Yep.
Yeah, credit to him.
No, pleased with that.
I'm really annoyed. I've had a really great race. I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed this podcast. But I took too much out of my tyres in Q2. And so I had to make that extra stop. And now I've got a 3-second time penalty for cutting a corner that I didn't cover.
Oh. Come on then, Rosberg. Through you go. Thank you.
But I really thought I was going to get points for the first time at Silverstone, and no. At best, I can finish 11th if I get 2 overtakes this lap, which seems unlikely.
Boo.
But I've not been lapped, which I expected coming into quali.
Well, Magnussen is just about to be lapped in 15th, because I can see it happening just in front of me. In fact, no, he's going to get away with it. So I will be the first lapped guy in 16th, which isn't too bad after a drive-through penalty to get back to 16th. But I'm annoyed with my race because it was scrappy and shit.
So was mine, actually, though. When I could string together clean laps, I was able to catch people and overtake them. But all too often, I take a stupid line into a lot of the corners and lose so much time to them.
Yeah, no, I overdrove. Never mind. Losers. So, losers for me. Raikkonen.
Yep.
Bottas. But on a small lose at the moment for me.
Yeah, with an asterisk.
Yeah, that pole position, I think, will have done his confidence no end of good, because it's shown for the first time that he can be beaten. And so long as there's that glimmer of can, he'll get there. He needs to stop beating himself up, though. He's going a bit sadomasochist on this, I think. Williams, as a team, because they've not got... But I need Stroll to have a race where something doesn't go wrong for me to to de-asterisk that. Palmer and I will probably leave it at that for now because I don't think anyone's particularly loosey. Magnussen needs to sort himself out. If he has another shit race, then he'll end up on that list as well.
Yeah, he's been very up and down. Although the only surprise for me was your inclusion of Haas among the winners, because I always felt like they snatched where they've got points, they snatched them at the last minute, and attrition has always played a factor. That said, I don't want to take anything away from them because you've got to be there to get it, and arguably having pace at the end of the race is the right time to have it. So, but I don't see them as a winner. I think their car is ultimately fast.
Yeah.
But they still seem unsure about how to extract it, you know?
Yes, yes. But I think fundamentally that car is actually quite quick. And if they suddenly work out that actually when you build your own car and you do it properly, you might actually have a bit more of a clue as to why it works and why it doesn't. That might actually help them out a smidgeroo, because otherwise, yeah, it's buggered. I knew that was what had happened. Sorry, there was a yellow flag in the middle of the race down at turn 1, and I was wondering what had happened. Raikkonen and Ricciardo had crashed into Ericsson. That's what had happened. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, because I entered the pits just as Raikkonen was leaving. He dived in to change his wing. What annoyed me is I had to pit 4 or 5 laps before the end, and I pitted from 7th, fighting for 6th.
Oh.
And all because I should have done Q2 on mediums.
Don't.
I knew it was hard on tyres, and I even considered before I drove out of the garage, should I do this on mediums? And I saw 0.2 of a second difference. That means I'm definitely not going to get through to Q3. So why would I do that? But nah, hindsight is 2020. I'm happy with 13th. I actually think I had a really good race. I had an amazing battle with Grosjean. He and I were trading over 7th place pretty cleanly and pretty consistently. I got past Button and I had a pretty good run with him. Alonso was right behind me quite a bit, and I had a really good late race battle with Button and Kvyat that you see Button came out the winner of.
Yeah.
I and Kvyat were 3 wide into turn 1 and through turn 2, and then I backed off before I was launched into a barrier prior to the braking zone for turn 3. But I still managed to get through ahead of Kvyat, so I feel really pleased with that. But you can see that extra pit stop is what killed it.
Yeah, because look at our lap times. We were both of us. Because there's only a tenth between us on fastest laps, and I done my fastest lap on the hard tyres, so that's annoyed me. I should have went for harder compounds. We were on the same pace as the Williams, so we should have been in the points, all going to plan. Faster than Alonso, faster than Grosjean.
Yeah, we're in the 137s, 138s quite consistently, aren't we?
Yeah, so yeah, we should have been. I mean, Verstappen's fastest lap is a 37.4. We were faster.
Yeah, that's. To be honest, I have to say that I hated the hards early in the stint, but towards the end, they really came on song.
Same.
And I remember the car feeling really, really good, and then seeing that my front left was 70% worn. And I was thinking, oh, fuck, it's only lap 14.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my setup that I took from my Sauber career mode, I don't think the setup worked as well here as it did there, because I think it just suited the Sauber a little bit better and took a little bit less out of the front tyres. And maybe if I'd been in the Sauber, I could have snatched a point or two. But, you know, whatever. I'm actually overall very, very happy, and I think that's a positive comeback.
Yes.
Particularly because I qualified so well as well. I have to look on the bright side of life.
You did good. And there's a couple of extra points that I just wanted to shout out on this specific cast itself. I don't know if are you able to watch Formula 2?
I think so, but I've not done it.
I shall send you the links to it. Charles Leclerc. So in Formula 2, you've got a sprint race and a feature race. And in the sprint race, you generally don't pit for tyres because it's like 20 laps of Bahrain. So they've done their first round. And Charles Leclerc, who I'm a massive, massive fan of and who I think will be in F1 next year, was leading the race, but the tyre wear in Bahrain was really, really, really crazy high. So he decided to pit, came back out in 13th position, and in the course of 7 laps overtook all the cars and ended up winning on the last lap. It was amazing. If you ever get a chance to watch that race, he's pulling off moves around the outside of turn 4, down into the double left-hander that I can never take properly, onto the DRS in the middle. He's driving rings around these cars, and it is a pleasure to watch. So if you do get a chance to watch that, there's normally a great website called racingforeveryone.eu, and it's a guy that finds all the races around the different categories and uploads them onto various different YouTube and Vimeo places. It's currently down for maintenance, but it had it on there. That's where I watched it. So if anyone wants to see that, that's great. And also Formula 4. Did you see the Billy Munger crash?
Yeah, I did actually. I did want to touch on that. Hell of an accident. I saw the onboard. There was nothing he really could have done. Really, no. It came out of nowhere, didn't it? I was quite shocked actually how quickly things went wrong there.
Yeah, it reminded me of Riccardo Paletti and a bit like Lamy and Leto, where you've got the stationary car and you just career straight into the back. Horrible.
And obviously, I think I speak for both of us when I say our thoughts go out to him and his family.
Yes.
Hell of a shock.
But he's come out of his induced coma and he's lost his lower legs, but is apparently talking and okay-ish. He's gone back in for some more surgery. But the Just Giving page, they was asking for $250,000 and it's already at $500,000. So motorsport community rallying around together. And doing some great stuff. Sargent and Button had given 15 grand. Other people had given like 10 grand, like various different teams. And some other drivers had an accident as well. And the Billy Munger family have then gone and given money from that donation to them as well. So just as a like final point, motorsport community all coming together and showing that actually we aren't all a bunch of douches posting Pastor Maldonado memes all the time. We actually do look after ourselves as well. So nice community, thumbs up.
Yeah, I have to say I was impressed by how generous people have been, and rightly so. And obviously, we wish him a speedy recovery. All I would say to him, not that he's listening, but maybe he is, because we are the foremost failure cast.
Exactly.
It never held Alex Zanardi back.
No.
It needn't be the end of a career.
Exactly. And he's gone on to do amazing things. As Robert Kubica also tried out a GP3 car last week, which is an interesting thing as well. So people that have had various injuries, don't let it hold them back.
No, definitely not.
So thank you very, very much. I was just looking at the championships. Nothing changed for us, sadly. Verstappen now ahead of Button. But we've got Hungary coming up for our next edition. Any thoughts or predictions for the Russian Grand Prix? Because this will be going up tomorrow evening, if not this evening.
Oh, good question. I actually hazard to make any prediction other than I think Ferrari will take it. The win,
Ooh.
not quali.
Okay.
I think Ferrari will win it. I think in what amounts to in places quite a narrow circuit, I think level and reliable cornering and good cornering speed is massive. Not that it never isn't. And I just think Ferrari are going to have the edge. I think Vettel will take the win, probably through pit strategy rather than an on-circuit move. That would be my assessment. I'd also expect actually to see Hülkenberg do quite well again. What about you? What are your thoughts?
I'm going to be contrary, and I'm going to say that Hamilton will win, and it will go to a piece for a tit-tat. And that's purely because of the straight line speed that you have and the complete lack of tyre wear around that circuit in previous times. will only be accentuated. And so where I think the Ferrari is better on its tyres and ability to be closer, I don't think it will be as much of a factor here, and therefore Hamilton will win from Vettel, Bottas, Raikkonen. I think Red Bull will struggle a smidgy bit more there than other places. I would also back up your Hulkenberg prediction. I also think that Williams will be on song there as well.
Well, one of them will.
Yeah, Massa will. Good old Massa.
I think it'll be quite a hard race for Stroll to shine in, actually.
Because it's awkward, isn't it? It's like a weird... Mind you, it's lots of 90-degree corners, which coming from Canada might actually help. I don't know. What is this turn 3 where it's got a radius in? You what? And I'll be looking forward to seeing where Carlos Sainz can have an unwitty smash in.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't talk about that, but we will do next time.
Ooh.
Naughty boy.
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening, everyone. We promise not to leave it nearly as long next time. And we'll be talking to you after the Russian Grand Prix, hopefully, where we'll have our analysis before we start moving into F1's European season and the development race that it will be.
Take care.
Toodles! Well, hey.
Good episode, I thought.
Yeah. We were compos mentis, a bit sweary from my end. Apologies for that. I was getting really frustrated. Because I could feel that I had good pace, and then all I did was just basically self-injure myself. It was like I was having an emo race where I just wanted to ruin my own life. Daddy, no.
Sometimes, sometimes you just deserve it. You internally you think, I deserve this, and you just go with it.